Hey folks, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
And today we're going to talk about, are you ready? Are you ready for what? Are you ready for the power to go out? Are you ready to power your electrical devices if you're off-grid or camping or something else? So stay tuned. You know, Irene's business relies on communications. It doesn't matter where we are. If we're here in the homestead, we have to have communications. If we go out camping, again, we need communications because her business relies on being able to handle credit cards. Out in the middle of the pucky brush, out in the middle of a field, out in the middle of the mud if you'll watch that video.
Really? Yeah, and we have to have two different machines functional at any time, if possible. Our credit card processor is square. With the introduction of chips, we have to have a reader that can process both magnetic strips, because once in a rare while we still get somebody with a magnetic strip, and chips. We try and have multiple setups so that if one were to die for some reason, you never want to have just one with you. I've actually had foolish people come to me at events and say, I broke mine, can I have yours? And I'm thinking to myself, why, so you can break mine too? You know, especially when you watch some of these people who, you know, practically hit it with a hammer and they wonder why it doesn't work. But we have multiple pieces of machinery now. The old ones, you just plugged them into your smartphone and they worked by themselves. They took power from the phone. The new ones have to be charged. So you still plug them into your phone, but they have to be charged before you plug them into your phone. So that means I have at least 3 pieces of equipment, plus the phones, plus the iPads, because one of the things is linked to an iPad mini. The other thing is linked to my phone. We can link one of them to your phone. So, I mean, we have these backup systems because you can't be without it.
So how do we power all this stuff? Well, if you look on the table, it kind of looks like we've been to an electronics store and bought everything. That's not quite true, but let's go ahead and talk about how we deal with power outages here on the homestead, and more importantly, how we make sure Irene's business continues to operate when we're at a camping event, which is where most of her sales occur, besides being online. So what we use most of the time when we're going to these camping events is we use an inverter and a deep cycle battery.
Right.
Now, we're getting ready to go on a long trip. We're looking about 7,000 miles round trip, which is a pretty fair distance. And I really don't want to have a 60-pound lead acid battery in the back of the truck all that distance. So we're doing something a little bit different. But normally we use an inverter and that deep cycle battery. The inverter plugs into the battery and it puts out house current right there. It works very well. It will last us a good 6 or 7 days without any issues.
Yeah.
It powers all of our equipment and some lights. We actually have lights that we put up in the top of a pavilion that lights up all of Irene's jewelry so her customers can see what's going on.
Right. Most of the events we do decide usually that they'll have one night where they make us stay open late. The theory being that a lot of people are super busy during the day, and that in the evening, especially if it's a hot event, in the evening things will cool down, people will get kind of cleaned up and feel like shopping again and come on out and shop. But you have to have light.
Yeah, and what we do is we use LED lights that are very bright. They don't draw a lot of power, and we can power those lights for 30 or 40 hours if we need to. So in the meantime, what do? Well, I said that we're not going to be taking that big lead acid battery with us.
Right.
That means that we have an issue potentially. There's no power at the first location that we're going to.
Right.
So what we have is a series of batteries that can power our equipment. Well, right here you can see I have my earphones plugged into this battery. This battery will last about 5 or 6 recharges for my smartphone. So, smartphone will last about a day. I can get, let's say, 5 charges out of one of these bricks, which also happens to have a solar panel on the top, so it can recharge in the sun, which means that we can make this last a little while. We have 2 of these. It plugs right into the bottom of my cell phone and it powers it just fine. So that's one thing that we're using. We also have 3 of these lithium-ion battery packs. These are also good for about 6 recharges of our cell phones. We have 3 of these, so that means we can power all of our devices between the 5 batteries for probably 8 to 10 days without a particular issue. Now, that deals with keeping Irene's business alive. But we have other things. For example, we have a battery charger that charges the batteries for our cameras. This charger is interesting because it has a USB connection on it, which connects to these battery packs just like everything else. So we can recharge our camera batteries. I have a piece of medical equipment that has to be charged. It also has a USB connection. It plugs into these same batteries and it can recharge in just a couple of hours. Now, that gets us through the essence of Irene's business, except for there's some things with her business that she can't do on the smartphone or on the tablet. And that's where a laptop computer comes in. Now we have a Dell laptop computer that we use. This is capable of running our video editing software as well as all of Irene's software that she needs to run her business. If you are a video creator, one of the things you know is that you go through disk space in a real hurry. So in addition to the laptop, we also have a docking station that's also connected by USB to the laptop. I have a 4 terabyte drive that goes with us when we're on the road. That provides all of the backup that we need for all the videos that we do on the road, as well as all of the various bits and pieces that we use in our videos. Some of you may be wondering what this yellow thing is up here on the front of the table. That's another battery. It's a sealed lead acid battery, and it's actually used primarily for jump starting cars, but it also works very well to recharge our portable devices.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, the laptop does not recharge from a USB connection. It has to be powered from a line. So we need to have our inverter available for those times when the laptop runs out of juice. The laptop is good for about 6 hours of continuous operation. So most of the time, this will do just fine. When we need to have some more power, we have another approach right here. Now you may wonder what all this has to do with being prepared. Well, we live off the grid, which means for us, if we don't produce the electricity, nobody produces the electricity. And there's no electricity, there's no lights, no camera, no action. And we do use electricity. Right now, as a matter of fact, you may be able to hear our generator running. That's because we had very high draw today and not a whole lot of solar. Our greenhouse is really sucking the power right now, but it's keeping the plants alive. If you happen to live in suburbia or in the city, you should really think about what of these products that we've talked about here you could use and what you should use. For example, I have a little flashlight. This flashlight can also be recharged by USB. So you really ought to think about what you could use should the power go out at your place, no matter where your place is. I hope this has been interesting and of value to you. It certainly is value to us. It keeps Irene's business online and operating when we're on the road.
And everybody needs their cell phone these days. With the weather the way it's been everywhere in the United States this year, there's been thousands and thousands of power outages. And it's nice to say, oh, the power will be up tomorrow. Well, if it's not, how many days can you last? And I think everybody needs to ask themselves that question. Can you stay in touch and let your family and friends know that you're okay? Can you call an emergency operator if you need to? If we don't have power, we can't call 911. You need to have your act together enough to be able to save yourself. We have a spot in the living room right by the TV where we can charge every single one of these things. Super easy. We have all the electronics there because it makes it super easy to say, oh, that piece of electronics needs to be recharged. It's in front of you, it's on your mind, and you take care of it. If you're somebody who keeps this in a bucket in the back room somewhere, then when you need it, do you know where it is? Can you find it in the dark? And does it have any charge? So part of this to me is just common sense preparedness.
Yeah, so part of the deal is, even if you have one of these, if you don't keep it charged and accessible, you might as well not have it.
Well, they call it a brick, and if you don't have it charged, it might as well be a real piece of cement brick.
What I have to say to every one of you is, are you prepared? Are you ready for the power to go out? What will you do when it goes out? Do you have something to power your phone? Do you have a radio? How are you going to stay in communication with your friends, family, and emergency people?
Do you have flashlights that work? Having a flashlight with dead batteries won't do you a darn bit of good. You can use it as a club, but that's about it.
So, we hope this is of value to you. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
You ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.